Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Transportation Disadvantaged Coordinator Board for Friday, June 9th. At this time, we'll have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Myers,
Here.
Gloria Mills,
Here.
Glenn Brown,
Here.
Deborah Knoll.
Mike Lacey in her presence.
Thank you. Artie Fryer, Craig Fursell,
Here.
David Newell, Tracy Noyes, Emily Hugart.
Ian Martin in place of her.
Thank you. Christina Melling, Clarendon Sennett, Beth Pasek,
Here.
Mark Harshberger, Deborah LaKenta, Allison Nagayan, Alexia Wiggins,
Here.
Councilman Schisler,
Here.
Kristen Thomas, I believe she's on virtually. Kristen, you do have the ability to unmute yourself. She is here. Indira Chambers,
Here.
John Vargas,
Here.
Cassandra Blaylock,
Here.
Jerry Stickney,
Here.
Karen Smith. Chair, we do have an in-person quorum. Would you please call for a vote of consent for remote participation?
Okay. Can we have a motion to go for consent for participation for those who are online?
So moved to consent for participation for those who are online.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, now everybody's saying good. Okay. Okay, we have none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? That motion is carried. Yeah, do we have any public comments?
I'm not sure, but who had the second on that? I think it was Glenn Brown who made the motion.
Correct yourself, I guess. You can
Correct.
correct
And
yourself.
Councilman Schisler.
Okay,
Yes.
so Councilman Schisler made the motion.
No,
No.
Greg made the motion. No, Glenn made the motion.
Glenn Brown, and then who was the second?
Councilman Schisler, can you turn your, thank you. And Ian Martin.
Okay,
you.
thank you. And everybody online does have the ability to unmute themselves for public comment.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we have approval of the minutes.
For board minutes.
Prior to that, I'd just like to note that there's one change to the minutes.
Can you state the change?
Yes, under the discussion about service rates in your minutes, last time it was stated that it was asked how 2.5 million compared to the previous year that was the grant that was received. It was about $100 less, that it should be 100,000. So we noted the change. It should be 100,000 instead of $100.
Okay,
Yeah.
100,000 instead of $100.
So we received 100,000 less.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ian Martin, second by Councilman Schisler. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? That motion is carried. Okay, we have action items. Allison? And you'll take care of A and B.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm Allison Ye with the Hillsborough.
Can you speak into the mic, please? Thank you.
Sorry, not tall enough for that.
Make sure it's on.
So,
Okay.
so I'm Allison Ye with the Hillsborough TPO staff, and I'm filling in for this position right now. We're going to talk about items A and B in succession. So the TDCB bylaws will be the first item. So the Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantage requires that local coordinating boards like this one annually review and re-adopt their bylaws. The TDCB is Hillsborough County's designated LCB and subcommittee of the TPL. So we have these bylaws that establishes the formal procedures for the TDCB, including things like membership, staff, board duties, subcommittees, communications with other organizations, and these bylaws of our subcommittee are incorporated into the larger bylaws of the Transportation Planning Organization. Just to give you a snapshot of who's on the board, many of you are here. We have an elected official, citizen advocates, children at risk, another citizen advocate. We have representatives from the elderly, the local veterans representative, a person with disability. The Florida DOT is represented, the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration, the Florida Department of Education and Division of Blind Services, local for-profit, local medical providers, Hillsborough County School Board, HEART, and Career Source Tampa Bay. So it's a great group. What you're required to do as a part of the bylaws and board, I just wanted to let you know, like you approved the service plan at the last meeting, Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan. We're getting ready to kick off the annual Community Transportation Coordinator evaluation. And occasionally service provider approvals also come through this board. And one of the duties we're going to talk about in the next item is the appointment of a grievance subcommittee. So it's pretty straightforward. The entire bylaws are in your packet, and we can talk about it in more detail. If you have questions either here or if you just want an overview, I can, contact you personally to do that. But the action item is to approve the LCB bylaws today.
Do we have any questions before we move with the motion? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Need a motion?
To approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Schuessler and second by Ian Martin.
All right.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? That motion is carried.
All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
B.
So item B is the TDCB grievance procedures. So this is also something that the TDCB is required to review annually and approve. The procedures are also in your packet, quite detailed, but they include establishing a subcommittee, talks about membership powers and duties. And they're also incorporated into the TD service plan that you saw at the April meeting, section 4.3. So the overall purpose of the grievance subcommittee is quality control for the transportation disadvantage system. So we want to provide participating users, funding agencies, and transportation providers an impartial body to hear complaints and make recommendations on, any disputes that concern the services that's being provided. The nuts and bolts of the grievance committee is that we have 5 members that are appointed by the chairman of the TDCB board. So there must be 1 user of the transportation system, 1 representative of a recognized disabled group, and 3 representatives from the LCB at large. The current membership is Nancy Castellano, Craig Purcell, Mark Harshberger, Gloria Mills, and John Vargas. The first 4 individuals you see were appointed in April 2021 as a 2-year appointment. So what we'll need to do with the action today is 1, approve the grievance subcommittee, but before that, we probably want to reappoint these individuals unless they don't want to serve anymore. And then, we need to have 5 members total. So that is the action item today.
Okay, have we confirmed that they want to stay on the board?
I have not heard anyone not want to, so I think,
Okay.
yeah.
We have
So,
a- Okay.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to approve the grievance procedures?
Motion
To report?
I'll second.
Craig, did you who made the motion of that? For Beth? Okay, thank you, Beth. Who second? Glenn? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? That motion is carried. Thank you so much, Allison.
thank you. I'll pull the next presentation up.
Okay. You ready for the next one?
Mhm.
You ready?
I just,
For status report?
yeah, this is status report. Who's here for the?
Okay, come on up.
Yeah, come on up.
Jay Paul.
Yeah, I know it's okay. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Alvaro Gabaldon. I'm with Planning Commission staff. I'm here with representatives from FDOT, and we have planners from HEART also here virtually. The 3 of us have been presenting about our concurrent projects that are happening in the approximate area on the map that is shown. Basically, that is the Fowler Avenue Vision Study, the FDOT PD&E study that's going on, and HART's BRT study. All three studies center on Fowler Avenue, and obviously have a huge potential to influence each other and coordinate with one another to improve the general mobility and redevelopment opportunities that are in this area. So the first presentation you'll see is FDOT's PD&E. So Amber Russo speaking to that.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Amber Russo. I'm the FDOT project manager for the PD&E study on Fowler Avenue. Also with me today is Steve Gordillo. He is the consultant project manager with WSP, and we'll be able to help answer any questions at the end here. Last time I was here, or we were here, was towards the end of last year when we were kicking off the PD&E study, and we presented all our alternatives. So I'm here today to provide a status update and announce our upcoming alternatives public workshop that's being held next week. All right, so as Alvaro mentioned, lots of projects going on around Fowler Avenue, which have led to us conducting our PD&E study. As mentioned, HART's Bus Rapid Transit Study, which is shown along Fowler Avenue from Nebraska Avenue to Bruce B. Downs. And then the Planning Commission's Vision Study, which is evaluating land use policy and code for the area. These studies, along with mixed use redevelopment, improvements to Mosey, and the upcoming USF football stadium, have all contributed to our need to improve the roadway improvements on Fowler. So our limits for the PD&E study, they run along Fowler Avenue from North Florida Avenue to west of North 56th Street. The purpose of the study is to address safety for all users, improve traffic operations, and provide multimodal accommodations. Improvements studied in the corridor include 3 transit alternatives from Nebraska to Bruce B. Downs. Also, we evaluated innovative intersections from Bruce B. Downs to west of North 56th Street, and bicycle and pedestrian facilities are being enhanced throughout the corridor. Let's take a look at what Fowler Avenue looks like today. So from Florida to Nebraska Avenue, it's a 4-lane divided roadway with a posted speed of 40 miles per hour. And then heading east between Nebraska and Bruce B. Downs, it's an 8-lane section with a 45 mile per hour speed limit. And then east of Bruce B. Downs to North 56th Street, it's a 6-lane section with a 50 mile per hour posted speed limit. Existing bike lanes are located on both sides of Fowler from Nebraska to 56th Street, and sidewalks are located throughout. The existing right-of-way varies in the corridor from 98 feet to 227 feet wide. Of course, we took a look at the crash history. We looked at the 5-year period from 2015 to 2019. There were over 3,300 crashes in the study corridor. 120 of these involved a pedestrian or cyclist, and approximately 73% of the bike and ped crashes occurred between Nebraska Avenue and Bruce B. Downs, which is where we are proposing the transit corridor. For all crashes, 53 were considered severe, resulting in 9 fatalities, and all 9 fatalities included a cyclist or pedestrian. There were 46 incapacitating injuries, and of the total crashes, 56% were rear end and 20% were angle and left turn. So the study corridor is divided into 2 main sections. We'll begin with the green section on the map, the transit corridor from Nebraska to Bruce B. Downs, where we evaluated 3 alternatives. The first alternative is the business access and transit, or BAT lanes. The existing outside general use lanes would be repurposed for buses and right turning vehicles only. General use vehicles can utilize the BAT lanes to turn into local businesses and side streets only. We're proposing 10-foot wide walks on each side of Fowler, and minimal right-of-way would be required for this alternative. The second alternative is the frontage lane system. The frontage lanes would be located separate from mainline Fowler Avenue and would provide access to local businesses. They would also separate the regional and local traffic, allowing regional traffic to move more efficiently through the corridor. Buses would utilize the outside bat lanes on mainline Fowler. We're proposing 8-foot wide walks on both sides of Fowler, and right-of-way would be required along the corridor on both sides of the roadway. The third and final alternative includes our median guideways concept. Bus-only lanes would be located in the median or center of Fowler Avenue. Stops are located near intersections to allow for safe pedestrian access at crosswalks. U-turns would be permitted at designated intersections and locations. We're proposing 10-foot wide walks on each side of Fowler, and minimal right-of-way would be required for this alternative. The intersections in the eastern segment of the project from Bruceby Downs to west of 56th Street were evaluated for improvements, including possible innovative intersection designs. So these modify vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle movements to reduce delay, increase efficiency, and provide for safer travel. However, no innovative intersection designs were found to be feasible for this corridor. The design of Fowler has user safety first and foremost. Crash data on the corridor clearly outlines the need for improvements. And in order to improve safety, the strategies being analyzed include potentially reducing the speed limit, adding mid-block pedestrian crossings, and separating the bicycle and pedestrian facilities from the roadway. As with any PD&E study, we looked at the environmental effects on the natural and cultural resources, as well as to the social and physical environments of the corridor. Here's a look at our evaluation matrix with the estimated costs. So we have the no build alternative in the first column, and then our 3 alternatives, bat lane, frontage, and median guideway in the other columns. The preliminary costs of the project, including design, right-of-way, and construction, vary per transit alternative. This has actually been updated since I sent my slides over. The frontage lane concept, we were able to get the right-of-way cost estimates, and it is now up to 31 plus 50, 52 plus 31, if someone's doing quick math, 83 million for the frontage lane concept. The other 2 had very minimal right-of-way, so add $2 million for each of those. And of course, this will be updated for the workshop. So public engagement is underway and will continue through the duration of the study. To date, study kickoff and several small group meetings have occurred, and a newsletter has been mailed out announcing the upcoming Alternatives Public Workshop. I'm not sure if that made it into your packets for today, but that can also be found on our study website. The workshop will be held on the evening of Thursday, June 15th, which is next week, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the University Mall property. More details and registration for the virtual option can be found on the study website. I just want to note that a public hearing may be held based on the selected project alternative, which will be determined after we gain all feedback from the workshop. As far as planning consistency, improvements to traffic operations and safety in the project corridor are consistent with your 2045 LRTP. So the project is currently funded for design in fiscal years 2023 and 24, and construction in 2025 and 26. Right-of-way funding is currently pending based on tentative updates to FDOT's 5-year work program. And as the schedule shows, public involvement and alternatives development is underway, with our workshop being scheduled for June 15th. So since we have 3 studies going on kind of simultaneously, we put together this slide to outline not just the next steps for the PD&E study, but for all 3 and how they kind of come together. So first, FDOT will hold our workshop on June 15th with all project teams present. And then depending on which alternative is selected, certain NEPA approvals and a public hearing may be needed. And then HART would need to begin the lane repurposing process for the transit elements of the project. The Planning Commission plans to host their second open house sometime this fall. And then FDOT's design phase would also begin this fall, no matter the alternative selected. This last slide just has the study website that will be updated with all project materials and documents by Tuesday morning of next week. I also have my contact information on here if you have any questions after the meeting. And I'd be happy to take any questions on the PD&E, or I can turn it over to Alvaro to talk about the vision study.
I have one question, and someone might have another question as well. On the, and it's regarding the Fowler Street where you showed the 8 lanes, where's the pedestrian crossing to go from there? That's what I was looking for.
So from Nebraska Avenue to Bruceby Downs today, it's 8 lanes.
Right.
So we have signalized intersections at Nebraska, at the Winn-Dixie entrance, and Bruceby Downs.
So that's almost walking a half a mile to get on the other side.
No, we'll have mid-block crossings. Unfortunately, we don't have the concept maps with in the presentation.
Okay.
The concept maps at the workshop will certainly show that we have added up to, I think, 3 or 4 mid-block crossings. So that you're not walking that distance all the way to a signalized intersection to safely get across the mountain.
Thank you, you answered my question. Any other questions? Councilman?
Can you go back, go to the next slide, we're talking Fowler from Bruceby Downs to 56th Street. Did you say there was no alternatives that anybody liked?
So we, innovative intersections were analyzed. Those are more complicated intersections that are supposed to help with the operations and efficiency of the traffic moving through the intersection. And they can be very costly and require right-of-way. And for those reasons, the cost benefit just didn't make sense for this corridor. However, there are other traditional intersection improvements being done in that segment from Bruceby Downs to 56th Street, just not the whole build out of a innovative intersection design.
So nothing additional, I mean, with the stadium going in that general area, there's going to be, I'm sure there'll be parking at Mosey and trying to get across, so it's going to be a little bit dicey. That bridge can only handle so many people.
Yes, so we have the bridge. We're also proposing, so right now there's only the pedestrian bridge. There's no at-grade crossing, and we are proposing to add an at-grade crossing at that intersection in front of Mosey with safety improvements like widening the median, so there's some pedestrian refuge, and also utilizing a technology like leading pedestrian intervals to help people get across more safely.
Okay, now, you finished, hold on a second. Councilman, you finished?
Yeah, I think so. It's
Take your time.
See that, you know, at the meeting, get a closer look at what's going to happen. That's a big stretch of road, 60 miles an hour, so it's going to be an awful lot of extra people up there at certain times of the year. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Who's our engineer?
Any plan for McKinley and Fowler?
McKinley and Fowler, do you
Yeah,
know the?
we have potentially looked at some traditional traffic
improvements at McKinley and Fowler.
Come over a little to the mic, please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We looked at some traditional operational improvements at McKinley and Fowler, and those will be present at the workshop for all alternatives.
Anyone else?
Sure, I had a question, but I also want to note that the full packet, including the information they just presented, is in your agenda packet, so people can see it in more detail. I just did have two comments, regarding the mid-block crossings, and this may come out in the workshop, is there going to be a minimum distance, there are standards for how far people can walk for it to be reasonable, a quarter mile? That's usually to transit stops and train stops, but is there any thought to, because it's so hot here, and, I live in that area, so I know that it's really hard to walk in the sidewalks, it's really hot. Is there a thought of shading along the corridor?
Yeah, once the preferred alternative is identified, we will also be identifying landscaping opportunities. And that's already in the works to get a landscaping project started, which I didn't know this until recently. Once the construction is completed, that's when the landscaping project would come through.
I'm sorry, can I have one more? Seems like it'd be an obvious question, so you probably have addressed it, but I don't know if you've ever tried to walk across that street. It's pretty huge, and it's when there are people, a lot of single mothers with children with strollers, and they're trying to get across that street to get to whatever shop or whatever is on the other side. Are those crossings going to have enough timing for them to be able to get across in a reasonable manner?
Yeah, so the mid-block crossings that we're proposing, they'll have
The beacon flashing?
a signal. No, it'll be an actual signal. So they'll press the button and it'll turn red. Also in the median, there'll be a refuge area. So they can walk halfway across and then there's like a safe area, and then they can keep going. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's being thought about. That's the main thing. So.
Follow up to that perhaps. Is there going to be like a countdown clock? How much time you have left across the street? I find those useful a lot of times.
Oh, I'm sure that we would. I think that those are implemented.
But I was going to ask, would it be possible to have all the ADA bells and whistles done before usually someone has to request them and then they get put in? We do it preemptively, the countdown, that the noise, all those kinds of things preemptively done, so someone doesn't have to request them first and then they get put in, later.
Yeah, understood. I'll make note of that. I would hope those would be standard, but I will check into that.
It depends. Like I've actually talked to several people in Fowler, and they say that I have to request it, and they're doing it, but it takes. They have to make the request for any ADA accommodation. You usually have to request it first.
Okay.
I have one other question. Is it possible when they're crossing that they can just walk all the way through, then to stop in the median, then wait for another light? So it stops traffic on both sides, that they can just actually go across all the way from one side to the other without stopping in the median?
Yes, that is how they should be using it. But for some reason, if they do either cross illegally or don't have enough time to keep going because they were late getting into I was just saying there is that like space in the median if they do need to press the button again and wait.
Okay. So if they're on time.
If they start the button, they should get all the way across.
Okay.
That's how they're supposed to work. Yes.
Okay. And how many seconds?
I'm not sure.
All right.
They'd be similar to the ones on Bush Boulevard.
I don't know if I can walk that. Is that
Bush is much smaller.
a minute?
Which is much narrower.
Yes, yes.
True, yes, but the setup would be.
Yeah, it would be designed for the facility. So if you're going to, there's a formula, it's designed for this facility. So we do an average, pet walk time. So we're going to make sure, obviously, if Fowler is wider, you'll get more time to cross there than another facility the neighborhood just said.
Hello?
Okay, the actual device. Okay,
County
not on
staff?
that phone, no.
County staff, would you please put everyone on mute, please? Thank you so much.
Exactly where. We'll figure it out.
Can you go ask staff put that. No, you go find him and you tell him to put it on. Okay, Councilman. You had another question? Okay, any other questions?
Just one, could you throw up that last slide that shows your email address again?
Sure.
There you are. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we can go to the next.
All right.
presentation.
Hello, it's Alvaro Gabaldon again with Planning Commission staff. So this is another one of the studies that is concurrently happening along Fowler Avenue. Obviously, this study is more focused on the land use that abuts the corridor. And an interesting, I guess, planning challenge of this area is that Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa's boundaries meet just north of Fowler, essentially bisecting the University Mall's parking lot. So if you know like where Portillo's is, like there's like a third of Portillo's that's like in Hillsborough County, 2/3 of it are in the city. So that's just an example of some of the challenges that from a land use perspective, creating like a cohesive form and context for the people that are walking around here and live here is very challenging. So a primary objective of this study is to bring Hillsborough County and the city to the table, work hand in hand, and generate consensus around a vision, a future state that we both agree on, and we can both agree on how to regulate in order to accomplish that vision. So, I talked about the boundaries. So basically, a goal of this is to create like a consistent and clear set of regulations that both jurisdictions can use to regulate this area, and of course make sure that the community has opportunities to give input on this, and that we're accomplishing an equitable outcome in this area that is experiencing a lot of interest from the development market. So this map, the yellow boundary is our specific vision study boundary. So you can see that we have the University Mall here, and we go south to 109th Avenue, we go east to 52nd, and obviously 275 is our western boundary. We have a lot of different land uses in this area. The mall, there's a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing in this area. There's big established single family sort of neighborhoods. I don't, historic, I would say they're pretty established. And there's a large chunk of industrial land here, including the Yuengling Brewery area. So we came, as Amber said, we came before you late last year, sort of kicking off this study. So now the red diamond sort of represents where we are at this stage. We've completed a lot of public engagement throughout spring of this year, where we did focus groups, a survey. We were promoting our project website, and we did like an open house kickoff at the University Mall, where we had maps and questions and opportunities for the communities to give us feedback. I spoke to these things. One of the great outcomes of our focus groups were we actually met with a lot of the big organizational stakeholders along this corridor. There's a lot of jobs along Fowler. There's a lot of medical jobs. Mosey's there, University of South Florida. So we had representatives from a lot of these employers speaking about how their employees or how their organizations interact with the community. So those people are a part of this process, and they receive updates as our project continues forward. And as Amber mentioned, fall 2023 is when we are targeting to have a second community workshop. And there's a lot of other moving parts with these other two studies, in addition to our own, that by that time we should be able to discuss and engage the community about. So the alternative will be selected. Our vision plan will have a little bit more meat on the bones to discuss. And so that'll be a great opportunity for the community here to see sort of everything that's going to have a part of creating this future state for Fowler. This is just quick overview of what we were able to do in the spring. So we did walk and talk group audits of the area. So you can see some of us wearing safety vests and walking through the neighborhood south of Fowler. There's a little asterisk on there because we actually did 4 walk and talk groups. The 4th group actually consisted entirely of USF planning staff, administrative and faculty, like facility staff. So it was really great to get their perspective of the area as well. And you know, you can see our survey responses and stakeholder numbers there. These are just some big insights that are in blue and bolded. These are consistent bits of feedback that we hear from both boards such as yourselves, our organizational stakeholders, and just regular community members that we spoke to. So, you know, it's pretty obvious, but Fowler Avenue is not just a physical divide, but it's a social divide. You know, it's pretty hard for people to get across the road, and that sort of has social impacts as well. Most tangibly, the city of Tampa and Hillsborough counties regulation of this area are not consistent with each other. And so for a business like Portillo's, it's very difficult to understand how to, you know, how to get a permit, how to develop land, et cetera. So again, that's the primary challenge that this study is addressing. You know, there's some infrastructure comments there. I mean, most notably, you know, buildings are spread out and far away. And so that's absolutely something that a land use regulation could influence or impact. You know, the intensity of buildings along this corridor, the density of residential units, that sort of thing. And then of course, the opportunity that those things have for supporting transit. So that's why you can sort of start piecing together why these 3 studies are so important to coordinate with one another. Obviously, speed is something that we hear about a lot from stakeholders across the board. Specifically about transit, people talked about lighting, a lack of lighting, or amenities, simple amenities like trash cans that have an impact on the just the environment of being a transit rider. Lack of shade came up a lot, so you all expressed that interest as well as the community. And then the word that struck me here is basically impossible to walk. So, I mean, these are not groundbreaking. I think we all sort of, even just going through Fowler, like if it's your first time sort of traversing that area, I think you'd take away these insights. But I mean, these are bolded and in blue because they are repetitive and they are consistent across stakeholder groups. So that's a very 30,000 foot view of our progress thus far. If you want to delve into the specifics of what our consultant and our public engagement has been exploring, you can do that on our project page. We have a community opportunities and constraints report. So that goes into a profile, a demographic profile of the study area, existing plans of this area, equity analysis, land use characteristics, you know, basically a thorough existing conditions of our yellow bounded study area. So the culmination of all this public engagement and research is our current stage of the project, and that is we have penned this vision statement, taking into account a lot of the feedback that we've gotten. This statement is pretty, I think, you know, similar to a lot of other vision statements you may see. You know, you have things like inclusive and vibrant, diversity of people and businesses, you know, providing opportunities for everyone to live, work, and play. But the I guess special part of this is that Fowler right now, being that boundary area, it's having both the jurisdictions at the table agreeing to this vision statement and proceeding with it. So how do we accomplish that statement? So we break that down further into objectives. So by creating a cohesive community identity, by improving mobility and connectivity, improving safety, not only transportation safety, but general safety of the communities, and encouraging redevelopment and revitalization, but mitigating the risks that economic opportunity has for displacing current residents and small businesses. Another part of, I guess, the character of this area is the small business ecosystem that's up there. There's lots of diversity in food options and retailers, and it's pretty like special part of Tampa, I would think. So that's of particular importance to us as we look at these land use regulations. So in an example of one of the mechanisms that our plan is proposing is a character district approach to the study area. So you can see they're color coded and they're titled basically what the focus of that area is the title of the district. So you can see in pink we have a mixed use activity center, and that's sort of consuming the large part of Fowler between 275 and USF. That's also where the BRT study is focused, and the mid-block crossings and the PD&E. So you can kind of see where the dots are connecting here. You can see in blue the industrial land, which will be a focus on innovation and employment centers, mixed use opportunities in terms of compatible residential to like the new type of industrial opportunities that are out there for employment. And then you have in yellow and orange, you have neighborhood transition and neighborhood. So yellow is sort of that established single family residential area, and orange is where you have a lot of that naturally occurring affordable housing. And then to the north of that orange is more established single family. So you sort of have that gentle transition from density into single family homes. So each of these districts will have policies and an objective and vision to accomplish basically what they're titled as. And this is just one of the approaches that our plan is proposing. So you may find a lot of these other strategies under these recommendations that we have initially from our report. So I spoke about creating density and intensity standards. So that would be shared across the jurisdictions of Tampa and the county. And if we do that right, we're hoping to create an opportunity for varied land use mix, creating those mixed use opportunities where people can live where they live close to where they work, live close to a grocery store, et cetera. And again, creating a sense of place through urban design, building placement, urban form, and accomplishing those other, implementing these other strategies to accomplish our objectives. So next steps, we are briefing the TPO advisory committees. We've been doing that since May. We hope to go to the TPO board in August, and we'll next be speaking to the Livable Roadways Committee on June 21st. On Thursday, June 15th, we'll be at the PD&E workshop, the Public Alternatives Workshop, representing this study and answering any questions that the community has in that venue. And then this is a typo, fall 2023 is the target time for our second open house with the community, and that will most likely happen at the University Mall as well. So my name's Alvaro Gabaldon. Jay Collins is here with me. We're the planners, project managers of this study, and we're available for any questions.
Just have a couple of questions. Thank you so much for the presentation. You mentioned on the development inconsistency between city and county when it comes to permitting. Have you all considered having a meeting with both directors, city and county? Has it happened?
Specifically about business permitting? No, but representatives from both jurisdictions are on our TAC and part of the PMT. I'm speaking very specifically to that bit of feedback. We spoke to the business community, and something that kept coming up is like new business owners, prospective business owners found it very confusing to navigate that process.
Then my suggestion would be to invite both directors to the meeting. They are the decision makers for both. Sometimes staff have to get back, but invite the directors.
And Commissioner, it's a great idea. And once there is a little bit more meat on the bones of the recommendations, that's exactly something that we would like to do. We know that directors and administrators in both the county and city are very busy. So we want to make sure that their time is used wisely. So we feel like we need to have a little bit more fleshed out so that they just don't look at it and go, okay, well, then what is the idea?
All right. I'll wait for that. And can you go back to the third slide from the bottom, we had the districts up. That's why I asked them to turn the lights off.
Sure.
Trying to find, I didn't see the blue.
Yeah, it's basically that industrial area, Yingling. I think Pepsi's in there. But, that area is experiencing a lot of interest in redevelopment. Yingling is building a hotel.
Yes.
Obviously, there's going to be uses there that aren't purely industrial if you're going to have a hotel and entertainment opportunities. And then the Planning Commission has received several pre-app requests for applications about, creating student housing within industrial land. So the vision being like, how can we create these compatible regulations to allow for jobs to remain in that area, but to accommodate, the more, I guess, the more like human focused uses that will spring up.
And Jay Collins with the Planning Commission staff. And just for context, that is a legacy industrial park. Before that, it was, I believe, an Army Corps bombing range back in the 50s. So, it's been there for quite a while, and it's gone through a variety of different phases in its life cycle.
Yeah, that's in, that area is identified in Tampa's comprehensive plan as such, as Jay described, so.
And how are you going to advertise and market for your meeting next week on the 15th?
Sure, so it's FDOT's meeting, but we, as partners, sure, yeah, like their meeting is on our project page, it's on our flyer. If you've signed up to receive email updates from our project, we tell people where we're going, so, our social media as well will speak to our presence at the FDOT workshop, but yes. Yeah.
I want to add one more thing that I was kind of excited about.
Hold on before you add, what do you do with people who do not have the internet? Are you having any signage in front of the mall, let them know that the workshop is going to take place on the 15th? I mean, everything can't be social media. I mean, a lot of people walk into the mall.
Well, we did mail out the newsletters announcing the workshop to everyone within 500 feet of from Fowler, from Florida to 56. So anyone 500 feet of there. What other non-digital? The day of, we'll have, of course, signs all over in the parking lot and at the mall entrance. I know the mall has been extremely accommodating, helping us. I know they had a newsletter that they're sending out. I don't know if it's a hard copy or that's just digital as well. But they've been helping us advertise. I'm just not sure exactly what other ways.
It would be helpful. I've attended some meetings out there. The last one they planning had, it's just no signage directing you where to go once you get inside the mall. So signage is always good when you want someone to just be able to go directly to the meeting without trying to figure and stop and ask someone where it is.
It's confusing, and yes, we will definitely have lots of signage for everyone at each different entrance as well.
Okay.
Obviously, there's multiple entrances to the mall. So.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions?
One question, Amber. And if, let's say I was in the mall, I didn't know that this was happening, but now I'm there and I would like to attend. Can I attend?
We'll kick you out. I'm just kidding. Yes, of course. That's why we decided to have it at the mall, because there are just so many people that are out and about. We're going to be right by the food court, so that attracts a lot of people.
I feel like it's important for people who are actually going to use the service to be there, to be the voice of the customer, you know?
Yes, and we've utilized the mall for a few other events, and it's gone well with just people that didn't even know we were there, but they happened to be at the mall, so we were able to talk to them.
Because I'm telling you, it's going to be really confusing this time. I passed by Fowler yesterday, and I looked over and I was like, oh my God, the whole mall is gone. Like it's all, like it looks like rubble, right? Now you see some build out behind where they've knocked down. So there's signs that something is coming up. But like, if I don't know where to go, I wouldn't know where to go.
Yeah, we'll be really particular on our signage outside the mall as well.
We plan to have a workshop like a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, where people The majority of people use it, I'm assuming are running through party people that work, don't necessarily have time to meet, maybe like a Saturday, Sunday type of meeting.
We have had other types of events on the weekends, but not our workshops and hearings. We do have them in the evenings, hoping that, people
Well,
can
I
attend
just-
after work.
This is a major traffic thoroughfare. At one time, it would help probably have a weekend. People are working.
Okay, I'll make note of that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that for,
Can you speak a little louder?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to suggest that for outreach, there are a couple entities in the area that are pretty large, like Crossover Church and Pastor Tommy over there, but also the university area CDC. You should probably get some things to them so they can get you some of the residents in the area that are the people walking across that intersection in particular.
Yes, we have a whole list of all, some of the stakeholders and groups that might be outside that 500 feet. The CDC's on there, all the churches, schools, so they receive the newsletter. We've actually gone to a couple events at the CDC to give presentations on our projects. So yeah, we're definitely in close coordination. If you think of any others that we might be missing, let me know.
Certainly.
Council.
A couple of just quick comments. Going to some of these meetings, I realize it's like watching paint dry. So you've got 22 participants in your meetings. I think you said 13 walkers. Are these considered statistically significant enough to have any influence in what you guys come up with, or is this kind of would, shoulda, coulda? This is what the textbook said we should be doing. I mean, are we actually getting input? And secondary to that, the yellow area, residential area in your map, is that what, I used to live in that area 30 years ago. Is that within 500 foot boundary? Did they get, if they had, or they did receive any correspondence?
So I can speak to some of that. And when you combine presentations, sometimes there are some blurred lines here. So the 500 feet that Ms. Russo spoke with was specifically towards FDOT's mailing requirements that they did. When we initially did our public engagement back in December, everybody that lived in our area that you saw on that received notification that the vision study was ongoing. So that was our initial, and that is a call for them to visit our website and a call for them to go to the community meeting that was at the mall at the same location that FDOT will be having their meeting. So there's consistency in the way in which these projects have been engaging with the public. And we feel that that is extremely important so that there is not confusion with folks that are out there. Just like we feel that it is extremely important that all three partners, HART, FDOT, and Planning Commission, attend some of these meetings together so that we can make sure that the public receives as much information as possible at one shot and not have to say, there's a meeting Tuesday night, there's a meeting Thursday night, and there's a meeting Saturday morning. You said the Saturday morning meeting? We agree, Saturdays are great for having meetings. But what about that Tuesday night and that Thursday? Sometimes having everybody there at one time is better than having everybody split up with it. So I would like to go back to that. You had also mentioned the signage and other things. So we've had some signs that have gone out there that aren't advertising an FDOT meeting, but they're smaller signs that are advertising the vision study that is ongoing, which then again references the FDOT out there. So there are other signs that are out there, and there are other mechanisms that are going to reach the community that's out there. You mentioned about the number of people that we've had engaged. Is it statistically significant? The idea to try to say whether it is statistically significant or not statistically significant to have public engagement is a very tough call. Maybe the better conversation to be able to say is, does the community feel comfortable with what is being presented, and have you, us, done everything we can do to reach them? every time we have these conversations, we learn a little bit more from folks saying, have you tried this, have you tried that, and we continue to do that. I say this a lot for folks when I do have these conversations. You go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. The people who show up to our meetings through the methods we have to try to communicate with them, that's who shows up. I can't take you out of your house and tell you to show up at a meeting. I can't make you come to my Saturday morning walks that we had in this community. I can't.
Well, that's my point. That's my point. I mean, you are the programs and the ideas that are coming out or going to be presented, are these, any of them coming from the participants? And I'm expecting you to say.
Oh, yeah.
Or is this what you guys have learned through your experience and through text, through education and so forth, is best practices, whatever? I mean, is it, that's the mix that I'm asking you about.
Sure. So
getting any input.
Yeah, because again, when we have these meetings with the community, whether it's the workshop in December or we do these walk-in talks, the walk-in talk has an intake sheet. The University of South Florida, they were the ones who were the consultant for that portion of it. So they've got a number of questions that they're asking folks. That then goes back to the main consultant, Kimberly Horn, on this, and they formulate policy to help to attempt to alleviate some of those issues that the public is seeing as they walk through this community. So the feedback that we get from the public is what the professional planners take to help actually write some of the policy in this. It's definitely a relationship that we have with them.
My last question is, can you go back to the map that showed where you were talking about the eagle? There, the northernmost portion of that green area or blue area, whatever that is, it's all vacant land. Will these rules that you're developing apply to the vacant land? Or will this have to be, or will these zoning issues stay until somebody decides they want to actually purchase it?
So it's a little too early to figure out what the regulating regime will be in this. Again, I don't have any policy to put forward to you to say about whether or not, let's say, an overlay pops in there. If the overlay is something that would then, I'm sure, need to be implemented in a phase 2 within the land development code. Again, the language here that is going to be presented eventually is to the comprehensive plan of the city of Tampa and unincorporated Hillsborough County. It will not actually regulate the property until there is an implementation of the land development code. So there's still work to be done even when we're finished with this.
Well, I'm talking theoretically, it would apply. You talked about Yingling. Well, that's about a quarter mile down the road. You got that whole area that just all the way from Crispy Downs eastward is vacant land till you get to west. I guess it's west. Or somewhere up in the
hotels, till you get to the hotels.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's currently industrial property there. It is vacant. Off the top of my head, I don't know if it's light industrial or heavy industrial. But again, they have current zoning that they have. They have current entitlements that they can pull under that zoning. Whatever we put into the comprehensive plan, it's not going to trump their existing entitlement that they have. If they were to change and ask for something else, then it may be an issue that they would have to change under the new regime. But again, I would like to say that we are talking about a lot of what ifs because we don't have any policy in front of us to criticize in that point.
It's my understanding, so the final thing has to be approved by both City of Tampa and Hillsborough County Commission?
Yes, separately because they're different, they're separate bodies, they're separate works, the two different comprehensive plans.
Has there ever been thought to like make the City of Tampa up to the end of all this study, so there's just one, and I mean, that's a broader issue, but to make it simpler to do this, to make the City of Tampa boundaries.
Those areas would have to annex into the city of Tampa, and that's another process entirely.
I just had one more thing to add about, for those who want to attend the meeting, that may not know about the meeting because they don't have computers. We also advertise in all the local newspapers. So we're in the Tampa Bay Times and good job, guys.
What about the Florida Sentinel?
Yes.
Oh, and that one. Yeah, there were three.
Okay.
Yes. And then I also just wanted to add, so that 500-foot buffer that we mail out the newsletters to, in the standard requirements, we would only have to mail out to 300 feet. But since this area is so dense, we decided to go with the 500 feet. So we're hoping that helps with the attendance and participation.
Is there a crosswalk somewhere? I'm not sure if there's a crosswalk in this area. But largely, is there thought of putting a signage, so permanent signage so people can, like, go with, be able to see it more? Under the.
So about the overpass?
Yes.
Just USA.
Oh, the one at Mosey.
Yeah. Signage under that. So you can see it.
Oh, no, you have more accidents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drive and read, okay, now you.
I think,
Let it stay down, put it outside the mall, like Monday, and folks will have a chance to see it between Monday and Thursday.
And I think if you connect with Pastor Tommy, then Sunday you could announce that church, and it's close enough to the event that it will be top of mind, right? I'm always a proponent for closer than, because if you give them a month ahead, forget it, you know?
So something that, there's no numbers to this, but it's certainly something we've been leaning on, is that via the Innovation University Mall folks, Pastor Tom, I've talked to Pastor Tommy numerous times since the study kicked off, because I go to their advisory committee meetings and I talk about what's new with this study every month. So I bring handouts, I bring things for them to bring back to their employees or their community members, their stakeholders to physically hand out. So that's something that I didn't speak to here, but I also have been going to like Temple Terrace, like small business, like I think meetings via the Innovation District as well. So we've been like physically there a lot. And there isn't necessarily a lot of numbers to report on that, but we're hoping that the materials and the information trickles down from the neighborhood leaders to the community. So
Right, and I think, with us making suggestions, it's not as much to be critical as more supportive, because we need as much feedback from the actual community that it will serve in, right?
Yeah.
So kudos to you for thinking of all those ways, because innovation is really a very resourceful thing to employ.
And I know that we're long, and I'm sure the chairwoman would like to move on, but one last thing I would say for councilmen, when the planning commission goes back out in the fall and has its workshop again at the mall, that's providing some of that policy. So part of what our job is to say to you or to Glenn or anyone else, hey, remember when you came out and you walked with us and you talked about some of those issues that you had with safety? Here's some of the policy that we worked on, and try to make that connection with the public so that they can see how their words would live in that document and whether or not we actually got it right.
Well, again, part of my question is, I have business owners come up to me and say, whoa, what are they doing? Well, did you go to the workshop? Did you do the walk? Did you participate? So you didn't. I can't, like you said, you can't make them go, but then you lose the right to complain afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've had excellent dialogue. Cassandra, have you had a? No, I was agreeing with. Okay. We've had an excellent dialogue, good conversation. Thank you all so much for the presentation. Going to move right to the next slide. Sunshine Line.
Yes, Jerry speaking with Sunshine Line. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I want to kick off and start by letting everyone know that Scott Clark has decided to retire. And everyone should have with their handouts save the date for his retirement celebration. So it's going to be on Tuesday, June 27th from 12 to 2. It'll be at our main headquarters on Hannah Avenue in the Seminole Heights area. So we're going to celebrate him at that time. Everyone's invited to share this information. If you do decide you want to come, if you are able to reach out and let me know for planning purposes, that'd be great. But if not, let's just show up and celebrate Scott. And I wanted to let you guys know, and I don't know if you realize that he's been working for the VOCC for 18 years. So he's been with Hillsborough County for 18 years, started with Head Start, migrated over to Sunshine Line, and been director for the past 9 years with us. And I only had the opportunity to work for him for 3 years, but to see the passion, the care, the legacy he's built there, I'm honored to work with him at that time and learn a lot from him. So we wish him the best as we move forward into retirement. And Allison actually has something that Scott wrote that she wants to go ahead and read out as well.
Thanks. We're going to miss Scott a lot. We're in good hands with Jerry. He wanted me to just send a quick note to the board and said, please express my appreciation to the TD board for all their hard work and compassion in transportation disadvantage. So I thought it was really nice wrap up for us. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. And if you'd like other copies, we have a couple more, and I can email it out to you as well. So,
Those who cannot make it, can they send one email or something?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be sure. I'll reach out and get contact information for Scott.
You have to send a gift basket.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Of course. So the next piece I want to roll into our service update. You also have a handout with our county, our operating stats for this past month. Some of that was requested from the last meeting, just to kind of screenshot. I talked about it in my reports, easier to see in person. So just some comparisons for April and May. Between April and May, we were able to have some of our pre-service and new hires hit the road. So we did have about an 800 trip increase within that month timeframe. So moving in the right direction. I won't read it through all of them there. Key things. Trips went up, 92.8% on-time performance. Our answer rate for our call center is 97.3, 16-second hold time, and our bus passes are being consistent month to month as well. We focused on a lot of outreach and a lot of efforts to get there. We currently have 12 vacancies still. A couple other staff that retired or got promoted to fill other roles. It was, I think, where we just went through our midterm processes with our staff and checking up on their stuff, and we realized that we have 20 staff that we've onboarded in the last 6 months still in their initial probation period. So the team we're hustling to get those hired, get those positions filled, and they're doing a great job. So we've got that going for us. And with those 12 vacancies, our recruitment just closed about 2 weeks ago. I tasked my staff to work with all of our partners, give information for CareerSource, for HR, for other partners that we work with to let it be out. We kept it open for 3 weeks. And with that, after we vetted all the applicants, we had 21 qualified applicants for our operator position. So we're working with facilities, and I think we found a location that we can actually bring on all 12 vacancies within this recruitment. So we started interviews on Friday of last week, and we've had interviews all day this afternoon, and next week we'll be wrapping up. So we're going to take the initiative to bring on all 12 or offer as many as we can to fill those roles. And with that 5-week onboard process, once they get started, we'll be looking at a July start time, 5 weeks, and just really be able to bolster up our group trips, our aging services trips, and really increase those numbers and fill those vacancies. So it's going to be interesting having that many people, but we're going to make it work. We've already got our outlines for that training and working with partners. So I'm excited for it. And it'd be nice to be in the 100% for a while until something else happens. So, and just so all of you know as well, our plans moving forward, the moment we hit 2 vacancies, we're recruiting right away. So that way we don't let this happen. I know there's a lot of circumstances with COVID and not hiring, and 120 trips a day, you don't need 55 drivers, so we got into that, but we're getting out of it, and we're going to continue to make that a forefront moving forward as well. And then that's the last piece I have about the stats and our operating piece. The final thing I have is our TD Tampa Bay, our cross-county and in-county trips, and our partnership with Pasco and Pinellas. On the bottom of the sheet as well, you'll see we're increasing. I've got February to April stats on here. The in-county went from 70 in February up to 115 in April. Cross-county 28 up to 60. So we've made that initiative with our call center team to have this as part of what they discuss when they talk to each of our clients, work with Hart and other members to just get it out there, let people know about this service. And it looks like it's working, so we're continuing that. And with the innovation grant that Pinellas County has rolled into for next year, we'll continue us within that cross-county service. So that cross-county service will still continue in partnership with them with that innovation grant and that in-county trips. We're still working with our attorneys and their attorneys to work on a piggyback contract, if you will, so we can continue our in-county trips that are, after hours and weekends, so we can continue that service moving forward as well and really solidify that long term. And that's all of my updates for now, pending any questions.
Beth, and then Clint. Beth.
Oh, I didn't have a question. I was just waiting.
You got my attention.
Good.
Clint.
I have a question. Do you feel like you're at capacity, below capacity in terms of your service levels? How are you guys doing now that you're ramping up, you're getting things in?
Yeah, so we're teetering a really fine line depending on the day, realistically. We're Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, our dialysis days are very heavy. One of the things, so those days are tough. Where we do that line, not having the resources yet, especially with our drivers, is where it comes to our group trips, aging services, and those adult daycares in the morning. Because there's requirements for how long they can be on a bus, we can't go pick up 10 people and get them there. We've got to make sure we stick within those windows and just the traffic that is now Hillsborough County. So it takes longer to get places. So it's really our group trips. Our door-to-door numbers are very similar, a little bit more than where we were pre-pandemic. So that's been able to recover pretty well, but it's those group trips that really are that service hindrance in the moment, which with additional staff will really help that support those numbers increasing. And then we'll be going into contract again, out for bid to have a taxi contract for additional T&C service. That'll help us with overflow, long distance trips in addition for those that can't fit within that route shared ride system. So the answer is yes and no. But we're doing pretty well for where we're at, so.
Yeah, maybe this is a kind of a follow-up question. The percentage of calls answered, is that what that means?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't ignore 2.5% of the calls. Like.
No, yeah, we decide, it's fine. So what is interesting about those stats too, and I've talked to our IO team, and if you call in and we have a 16-second hold time, so you're not waiting long. But if you call in and I call to check our message of the day, and every now and then I check things, and that actually goes, because I don't speak to a staff. When that finishes, I hang up. I just learned that also goes to our against our answer rate, and there's nothing we can do about the way that it flows. And then some clients, they prefer certain customer service reps. So they'll call until they get the one because it's in a queue, and it happens. So that's really it. So we limit. I learned how to check the message of the day without. The easy thing is I use my cell phone, call it in. So I've learned to migrate that. My couple calls a month is not making a big difference. But yeah, we have clients that just love certain reps, and they answer and they, nope, not you. Let's try again. And they'll do that multiple times. So.
But if you look at industry standards, that's very high. I mean, if you're looking at 97.3% of the calls, being answered without being dropped, that is a very good number.
And our TDSP is 90% answer rate is the standard we try to hold. So our team, they're doing very, very well.
Anything that doesn't involve, we are experiencing unusually high call volume, like you get from everybody else.
Yeah.
16 seconds is amazing.
I appreciate that. And we do so on our we have bus pass days where at the end of the month, we know people call in around the 21st. And with our Flamingo cards, it's a little bit easier. You can do it throughout the month, but people are learning and great. It used to be the 21st, call for your bus passes. So we actually do put on a message of the day for those three-day windows. You might experience a longer hold time. So we gauge that, but it goes from 16 seconds to a minute. But that for our clients that are used to that, it's still. I appreciate that. And my customer service team will as well. So.
Sure, thank you.
Oh, of course.
I have one question. So
You mentioned this thing's funded by the innovation grant. In the past, what's been the death of the county thing is when, right now, the governorial thing, when he does his budget dealing based on what the council has approved, this thing always gets scratched at this point right now. Is the innovation grant subject to this, or is that a different grant that will not go under governorial budget review?
So with our last CTD meeting and looking at that process with what was approved, it looks like we'll be fine for this, especially this project. The funds that are being used, it's not an exorbitant amount, and we're going to be able to sustain. And that's also part of with the in-county trips that we're going to try to migrate that piggyback to have to be internally so that we can sustain that long term. Cross county is great. We want to continue that. And that's part of the innovation grant is to pilot projects, find a way to sustain it long term. So that's the goal that we want to do. I'm going to make sure we take a big concerted effort collectively for this next cycle, next year, to how do we get that cross county to not have that. But from everything I've seen in the meetings and what we've discussed with the state, we're going to be okay. There's not going to be an issue, but it's a great thing until the funding's not there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to chip away to make sure that part we can. And it's a collaborative effort. 3 counties got to get that, make that work. So we're going to work toward that. But short answer, because I don't know how to give short answers. Right now we'll be fine, and we're going to continue to look to how to sustain it long term.
Anything else? Thank you so much, Jerry. Now we have the heart update. Justin?
He's online.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Justin Willits, Hart, Director of Planning and Scheduling. Apologies, I was planning to be there on purpose, but I'm very in person, but I'm very sick, so I'm going to keep this really brief. As I'm finishing my 2nd week, so I look forward to interacting with you all at our next meeting in person. But our major highlights right now, to follow up on previous presentation, we recently moved forward with the notice to proceed on the BRT Phase 2 low-cost alternative design, which is consistent with the Fowler Ave PD&E, the potential future lane repurposing application to be consistent with reducing Fowler from 8 to 6 lanes and giving 2 of those lanes to transit in some kind of configuration. So we've got consultant support moving that forward and designing basically the pavement markings that would accompany that project from downtown to USF. We've just implemented our, well, almost a month ago now, but our May service changes, we call it May markup. Some of the highlights of that were increasing, we're basically still trying to build back some of the service frequency that was reduced during COVID. So the highlights for the routes that got improved weekday frequency are Route 5 from downtown to USF, primarily on the 40th Street corridor. Route 19, only during the peak hours, that travels from Marion Transit Center downtown to TGH and Britton Plaza, kind of helps move some of our healthcare workers during the busy peak hour. And Route 32, which travels from Net Park Transfer Center in East Tampa all the way across town, hits the hospitals and goes to the airport, was increased to 30-minute service during the weekday as well. We replaced a handful of 3 routes, 3 of our fixed routes, and transitioned those to flex service. That'd be the Port Tampa, Route 17 in South Tampa, Route 46 on Brandon Boulevard, and then the East Fletcher route that serves Hidden River and some of the far fringes of East Fletcher out near the university area. And other than that, we kind of tweaked some scheduling to save some service hours on the ends of the day to kind of reduce frequency in the very early morning and the very end of the day that allowed us to make some of those service improvements in frequency that I just mentioned. We're working with what we've got, and those are really the highlights. Lastly, the West Tampa Transit Center has been re-implemented into our service. We had been not using it for several years, but now we've got several routes using that location on Himes near the stadium, Raymond James. And with that, I will stop and take any questions. Thank you.
Do you have a question? Okay. Thank you for your presentation. But at the next meeting, let us know if we have any delays with any of the bus routes. So that's one of the concerns that we hear. So as well as we get all the good news, we want to make sure we don't have any delays and people trying to catch the bus. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in person at our next meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mhm. Any old business? Sure.
Sure. So last meeting in April, as Joshua was wrapping up, he mentioned the appeal merger. So we plan to have a full briefing of that at our office meeting. However, I wanted to draw your attention to the back of your packet where there is a legislative summary of all the bills that passed, and among them was the Tampa Bay area appeals. So without reading the whole thing to you in a nutshell, Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas appeals have been directed to conduct a study of feasibility report to the governor due at December 31st this year to look at, what are the benefit and costs and process of consolidating the appeals versus keeping them separate. That's just pending, and we'll have a more detailed presentation for you in August.
Any new business? Any new? Any comments for the good of the meeting? Hearing none, we adjourn. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Next meeting is.
Hold on.